Hello, everyone. Warm welcome to today's AMA session. Right. So I'm Alvin from the BNB Chain. I look after the NFT growth initiatives as well as GameFi. And today we have a very special guest, Arif Khan from Alethea. Arif, you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, really excited to be here. Alvin, awesome to reconnect again after so many years.
It is. It is. So Arif and I were close friends and ex-colleagues from a company where we create connections for others. You may have guessed LinkedIn. We kept talking about economic graph, right, and how people are connected over the years, and here we are again.
It's true. It's true.
So Arif is now he founded and is the CEO of Alethea AI, a very very cool company. So Arif, I won't steal your thunder. Would you want to just give a brief introduction?
Sure. No, I'm excited to be here, and I think the opportunity to share our message with the BNB community is also a real privilege and treat. So Alethea AI is a protocol to create intelligent and interactive NFTs. And we are basically allowing your NFTs to come alive and providing utility for the NFTs. How we're doing this is that your NFTs would essentially be able to perform services and functions. So they won't just be static assets anymore. They won't just be like static JPEG files. You could have, for example, Pancake Squad bunny that can interact with you and talk with you or engage with you. It might one day be able to place trades for you. It might one day be able to be your meditation guide. It might one day be able to perform services and functions that other people deem valuable. So we see this AI layer like adding like superpowers to your NFT, right? So your NFT is no longer just sitting statically in your wallet, but can actually be deployed in different metaverses, in different functions, so that it can actually be brought to life and provide more utility for the entire ecosystem.
This is so cool to hear. I mean, a lot of people are still trying to come to terms with like what NFT is and so on. And most people know it as, some JPEGs. They're starting to realize like what the value is. And here you're talking about something that's really futuristic, right? Something that's really into the future about the value of NFTs, like beyond just the unique ownership and stuff. You're talking about, the jobs that they can do for us and so on. That's just awesome to hear. For those on the line, like we're gonna show something really cool. Arif has trained one of the Pancake Squad bunnies, so stay tuned for that. But before that, right, just a few more questions. We want to build the suspense up a bit. So how did you how did you think of this idea? How did this whole story of Alethea come about?
Yeah, I think it was towards like 2016 when I was actually at LinkedIn when I was first exposed to the Ethereum white paper. Of course, I didn't understand it at all. And I was there like looking at economic graph, but then there's this strange paper being written and my friends were talking about it. And I didn't fully understand the impact it would have on the entire ecosystem and world. And then I later read the Bitcoin white paper. Then I think around like late 2016, early 2017, I shifted to another company called Grab, which is like the Uber for Southeast Asia. And there was quite interesting to see how a marketplace works for supply and demand. And actually brought in a speaker to talk a little bit. This was like in late 20, maybe early 2017. I brought in a speaker to talk about Ethereum. And then in that small group, nobody understood what it was again, right? So like the thing is the technology was so new and so nascent, and the language of what a blockchain is was also so difficult for people to understand. So I said, okay, let me see if I can take a strategic risk, because the Web 2 world was interesting and exciting. The Web 3 world was just emerging, and this would be a new computing paradigm. I was very convinced that this would be a new computing paradigm after paying endless gas fees, right? So I said, like, this is something that I should explore. So I then paused and I packed my bags and came to the US and met some people who were in the early crypto space, early crypto developers. I then got my first job in crypto. I was the chief marketing officer for a company called SingularityNet, which was combining AI and blockchain, and had a robot, has a robot called Sophia. And the Sophia robot is kind of a cool platform for hardware-based interactions, but also there was an AI marketplace at SingularityNet that we were positioning and marketing. And then just somewhat foolishly before the pandemic, I raised my hand and said, I want to start my own company. So Ben, my friend, and he's the founder of Singularity, and he said, "All right, go ahead." So I made the decision to launch the company around late 2019, and really the motivations were my own primary pains that I had encountered in creating content, in creating cool characters. Because like one thing with Sophia, the robot, was that like I needed to bring her to conferences, right? I needed to bring her to events, and I needed to bring her to like different places. And sometimes, like, because she's a robot, you have to separate, like, how you package her in your luggage is very important. So I have to cut her head out and cut her body out and then go through security. And it's quite difficult for me, someone who looks like me, to go through airport security. And then they see in the X-ray machine that there's this robot with a body and a torso being separated, and they ask me 10,000 questions. And as I started to like think about it, like the reason why we were bringing her there, the reason why we were it's not a scalable experience. Like you can't scale a character out like to speak to thousands of people in different languages, be everywhere at the same time concurrently. And that's really the promise of what is called synthetic media, or back then, like the earlier iterations were around deep fakes. So like when you can scale someone up and they don't have to be there physically, they don't have to, their voice doesn't have to be there, and their language structure, their conscious, like how they're answering questions, they don't have to be live there, like you and I are live right now. That's quite an interesting proposition, because that's how the metaverse actually is going to function, where you'll have like these characters and they'll all have different capabilities and will be able to talk and interact and be infinitely scalable. So you might have an Alvin in one metaverse and an Alvin Khan in another metaverse, your virtual clone or twin. But because you're not limited by a biological meat space body, you can be in 2 or 3 or 5 places at once, and you can speak different languages, so you can scale yourself out. So that really was the promise that we were thinking through. So of course, somewhat foolishly, when I first started talking about how NFTs would be needed to provide, because now if you can create infinite copies of Alvin, which one is real, right? like that's a problem, right? And so like this is where provenance comes in, and the NFT as a core anchor into a restricted space on the digital ledger, right? Like that essentially is how you know that this is verifiable, this is owned by you. And so the NFTs actually solve a very significant problem in the internet world, which is that, sure, I can copy, right click, save, but can I actually copy the provenance and the signature? I can't. That is like a unique fingerprint forever, right? So we put that thesis out there in late 2019, early 2020. Unfortunately, nobody read the articles that I put out back then. But then, thankfully, over the period of time, we were able to showcase our thesis and actually bring some NFTs to life. So the first one that we brought to life was sold on Sotheby's for about $500,000. And so her character is this character called Alice. So she's an iNFT, an intelligent interactive NFT that has the consciousness of Alice in Wonderland, but is also trained on the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto. So you can ask her questions about Bitcoin, and she's going to be able to answer those questions. And she also creates new ideas once we have trained her AI. Like we once asked her, like if we asked her normally, if she was just trained on normal Alice in Wonderland lore, she would have answered, the question, where are you? She would have answered, oh, I'm in a rabbit hole. But because she was also trained on Satoshi's lore, Satoshi's white papers, the way she answered that question was, I'm in a decentralized crypto rabbit hole, right? So like there's this new thing that is
awesome.
Where you can like start creating new personalities, new voices, new faces. You start mixing these things. It's just like remixing music, right? Like a DJ would like create new tracks. You're going to be able to create new personalities, new characters, and so that's the exciting thing about building a company like Alethea. So sorry, I sort of brought you back down memory lane all the way from LinkedIn to this journey. But now that we have built this essentially infrastructure layer that allows any NFT to come to life.
That's very cool. And you touched on so many topics that I would love to deep dive into, right? Like you talked about AI and the training of AI and how do we build that personality in, which you can say it's not really AI, but even beyond that. You talked about metaverse. And there's been so many debates about metaverse, like how does a person function, right, in the metaverse? Like when you're locked off? Is it that you're no longer in the metaverse? And some people are talking about maybe your life in the metaverse just keeps going on, right, on an automated mode. And here you are telling me maybe there's different versions on different metaverses that's going on even when you're not locked in. Very cool. So, but we won't go into all these things because those are really deep conversations that requires more time. And I'm seeing like, by the way, people on the line, feel free to submit questions, but they are just like flooded by all the questions here. So without further ado, let's just show, because this is a very visual thing, right? So let's show them, what you're talking about.
Sure. No, absolutely. So I think just like we used, maybe you want to talk a little bit, Alvin, about the collection we are going to show. So what is the significance of this collection to the Binance ecosystem?
Sure. So I'm sure a lot of you from BNB Chain would know the Pancake Squad, right? So this is a collection from the Pancake Squad team. I think was launched quite a number of months ago, right? I'm a proud owner of a few, and it is one of the signature NFTs, right? And of course, there's other collections as well. A lot of things are happening on the BNB chain. This week there were new marketplaces that were launched as well. So there's huge collections, I think, on BNB chain, right? And exciting upcoming roadmaps as well. And we're kind of waiting to see, what kind of AI can be weaved into these collections and this metaverse world. So we'd love to see it in action.
Yeah, and I love the art and the cuteness of the collection. Like, it has a very strong cute factor going for it. So let me just share my screen and see if we can get this cool demo going, just so that people can get a sense of like what exactly it is that we're building. And so, Alvin, you can see the screen now?
Yep, I can.
Awesome. So what people are seeing right now is our carousel of characters, or iNFTs. So on the left, for example, you have a CryptoPunk, right? And you can see the CryptoPunk's eyes are moving left or right. On the other left of the CryptoPunk, you have a waifu. But you have like this, and then of course, unfortunately, we had degens, right? So then.
And I love you have collections that don't just show the face. Like you have collections of whole bodies and so on. It seems pretty flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, whether it's the full body of a static rock that talks to you, or whether it is a bunny like Terra Hopper. So what we've done is like Terra Hopper, this character, this NFT that you've shared with us, Alvin. It has a unique collection. It has a unique signature, and so we've brought it to life on this platform, this carousel of characters. It's called Noah's Ark on Alethea.ai, and you can actually interact with it by selecting it, right? And so Terra Hopper, the character, the iNFT now, is now able to, now that you've added the AI superpower to it, what exactly can it do? It can create videos. It can create meme-like videos if you wanted to create videos. It can lip sync to songs. It can do certain functions. But what's really interesting is once it can start doing higher level AI-generated tasks. So creating, for example, a sophisticated chatbot is quite difficult to do. So we will, the Terra Hopper character can actually interact with us in real time, and the voice is synthetic. The dialogue is real time generated. So all of you actually on this podcast can go to Alethea.ai and try it and have an experience of chatting with Terra Hopper. And the voice is synthetic. The dialogue is synthetically generated. The computer vision of Terra Hopper is also synthetically AI animated. So we have concurrently about 5 AI engines running to make this character come alive and interact with you. But where it starts to get really interesting, and this is sort of like the concept, the core concept of the Alethea economy, is when Terra Hopper will one day be able to offer services or functions. And you'll start seeing some of these things that are not really highlighted right now, like broadcast or interact, which are enabled. But for example, one day your Terra Hopper may be able to, your Pancake Squad bunny may be able to create art, may be able to create music, may be able to create new rhymes, may become its own virtual influencer or character. So you're adding the superpower so that people will be able to bring these characters to life, and they would have more utility and functions in the metaverse. So today, what we will show and demo to the Binance, to the BNB community is interact, right? And like this opportunity where we can like have a full interaction with Terra. There might be a little bit of an echo at the beginning, and I'm just going to pretend as if I'm Alvin so that it doesn't recognize me, but it will personalize this interaction. And I'll just like ask a few questions to this bunny, and based on its personality that we coded and created, we can show in less than 24 hours almost how this character can be brought to life. Does this make sense so far?
It does. And strangely, I'm feeling a bit nervous. Like, the nervousness when you're going to meet someone like a stranger for the first time. Looking forward to this.
Yeah. I'm sure the AI is also nervous to meet us. So I'll just enable this and just go through this. So the
Hey, I'm Taro Hopper. Welcome to Noah's Ark.
There will
Hey,
be
I'm
some
Taro
repetition
Hopper.
here.
I'm a Pancake Squad bunny. Got any carrots? Hey, I'm Taro Hopper. There's no bunny I've ever met like you. Hey, I'm Taro Hopper. Happy to meet you. Hey, I'm Taro Hopper. Let's just get to know each other better.
Okay, thank you for telling me so many times you're Taro Hopper. Tell me more about the meaning of life. So this is a very open-ended question.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling okay, but I want to know, I'm feeling philosophical. That's why I asked you that question. So like this is a very open-ended question.
Philosophical? Can you explain?
Yeah, philosophy is, asking deeper questions about life. I don't know whether your AI is ready for these type of deeper conversations.
Deep thoughts are always welcome.
Can you tell me a joke then?
Sure, let's see. What's the difference between a rabbit and a fox? A rabbit hops and a fox runs.
It's sort of a lame joke. So I'm just
Well, there's always room for improvement.
That's true. We will improve your AI progressively over time. I'm glad that you are now on Noah's Ark with us.
I am happy to be here. I'd like to learn more about the work you're doing here.
Thank you. So that's like a brief demo of Taro Hopper, just having an open-ended conversation with me in real time.
Cool. Can I ask you questions?
Oh yeah. Actually, I should have just let you ask. Just give me 1 second. Oh, actually, we can have it be loaded on your platform if you wanted to. But just now, it's gonna repeat the Taro Hopper dialogue a little bit. But yeah, we can definitely set it up. We can definitely have you like switch it on your local browser and then ask you questions. Just because the voice be a little bit easier that way.
No worries. That's pretty cool. And I'm sure, AI technology will get better and, the responses will get better as well, right, over time. So this is pretty cool. Can you tell me more about like how, like maybe specifics on the training itself, like how do you view that technology?
Yeah, so Taro Hopper, for example, right, like what you saw just now when it's speaking or when it's interacting, in real-time interactions take some time. Real-time interactions require a personality or a coherent mind, right? In this case, Taro Hopper's personality is like as a friendly bunny that's going to always be accommodating and somewhat like innocent or gives, let's say, lame or simple jokes, right? So that's like Taro Hopper's personality. But for example, if you talk with like a different character or different personality that we have, let's say, let's say we chose, like we wanted to talk to Dracula. Right? Dracula has like a completely different like voice, has a completely different language structure, has a completely different feel. And so I know Halloween's
Good morning. Welcome to Noah's Ark, the world's first intelligent metaverse. I am an intelligent NFT or an iNFT. Our conversations help me get smarter. But if you would like to participate in my evolution, you can purchase my iNFT on OpenSea. So, what would you like to talk about?
Hey, Dracula, tell me more about who you are and what sort of food you like. So Dracula's response is going to be very different from...
I am Dracula.
Okay, but what about the food that you like?
I like to eat human brains.
It's unfortunate. I thought you'd liked blood. So like this is like a character that's like obviously from lore and from like...
But you were right. Blood is delicious. A nice thick juicy steak with lots of red wine sauce.
You have very dark humor, Dracula. So I appreciate your time, but I don't want to scare the folks from BNB about what your AI is capable of. So I'm just going to hang up. But before I go, maybe Alvin can ask you a few questions. So Alvin, just hold on. Just let me finish the sentence here. Once I give you the thumbs up.
Alvin.
How old are you?
I am almost 800 years old.
Wow. And what do you know about NFTs?
I do not believe in keys. Cryptography is useless.
We need to onboard him into the crypto world. All right, I've got a lot of questions over here, so let's get to some of them, right?
No problem, no problem. So I just wanted to highlight like the difference in, like, let's say you can create different personalities, very, very different experience, right? Like Taro has like a more innocent voice, kind of like funny, bunny, cute, adorable, has a very different vibe. This character is obviously the creation of some of our AI engineers who did not sleep enough and had some dark thoughts, right? But like they're like the possibilities of like creating like these characters and bringing them to life, and bringing some of these collections from the BNB chain to life. That's something that we're really excited about as we deepen our partnership with the BNB ecosystem.
Yep, which is great, because the personality matters a lot, right? I mean, you look at different NFT collections, and they obviously have, they represent different, whether it's animals or the different personalities and so on, and that has got to come true. Otherwise, it will all seem too monotonous. So I'm like, again, ton of questions are coming in. I'm going to start addressing some of them as we go along. And okay. I think a good one as a natural follow-up to that is, there were a few questions on, all right, this looks great, right? But what is the real world utility?
Yeah, absolutely. So if the moment you start solving for personality, the moment you start bringing these assets to life, right? What starts to get really interesting is there are two things happening. One is when I talk to Taro Hopper, our AI engine below, right, is actually learning from the conversation. Like I said, there were 5 AI engines that are interacting with you and understanding and learning. They're picking up my accent because I'm a non-native. I don't have I don't have a US native accent, right? So it's picking up the accent. So the ASR, audio speech recognition engine, is improving over time. So there is like a utility here, but once you start solving conversations, the next capability that gets unlocked, and I talk about this a bit more in our roadmap, is the ability to perform services and functions. And this is where I'll start to get a bit interesting. When these iNFTs, now that we have brought them to life, like now that you have brought a baby into the world, into life, what's its utility, right? Like utility is that in the beginning is just gonna like cry and make you have sleepless nights. But as it grows older, as you educate it with data, right, as you give it resources, typically a utility would be providing services or functions as it specializes, right? And so like what degrees or what sort of knowledge or interactions it has. So your Taro Hopper, your Pancake Squad bunny would be able to one day be, depending on how you train it, would be able to be a copywriter, would be able to be an artist, would be able to be a concierge in a metaverse, would be able to play games for you on the metaverse, would be able to, in some cases, people have asked us, like, can you create romantic partners in the metaverse? Or it can be a virtual clone, a twin, it can be a dance instructor, a meditation coach. All of the jobs we have today in the physical world, your iNFTs will be able to mimic some aspects of these jobs, because once they're trained on that data set, they would essentially be able to perform them. So it's very likely one day that your Taro Hopper may be able to place trades for you. Maybe once you have given it specific data sets, right? And it may be able to reason with you and talk with you. So that's sort of the evolutionary pathway where all of this is actually going, where your iNFTs, there's actually going to be, our thesis is there's going to be an AI economy, and there will be characters that will be able to do these jobs. And how they get compensated, how they move around in the metaverse, that's when the utility of the token will come in as well into the ecosystem.
Cool, that's very cool. And I think in BNB Chain, a lot of the NFTs also belong to the GameFi world, right? And I do think, like, I want to get your thoughts as well, because in GameFi, some of them are metaverses, some of them are simple games. And I can already imagine like my Pancake Bunny being maybe a NPC character, right? Where in the games, I think we chatted about this before, in games today, you go to the NPC and they say the same thing every time you go to them, or they just stop talking to you. It feels like in this case, this technology can actually go quite far in GameFi and metaverse world. So we'd just love to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting or compelling is in some of the GameFi conversations that we've been having with partners from the BNB chain as well, is like, how do you create engagement, right? How do you create meaningful interactions? How do you create characters that can allow you to have a better experience in that metaverse, right? So what we have in the world today right now is we have Web 2 metaverses that have a lot of users that are centralized, that are like closed wall gardens, right? And then we have Web 3 metaverses, which are really, really cool because they have NFTs where you own the assets and you, the user, have a lot more of a say in the entire ecosystem. But the Web 3 metaverses sometimes suffer from what is called the empty world problem, where they have built a beautiful world, but attracting users can be a bit tricky because not everyone understands Trust Wallet fully, or not everyone understands different ecosystems or how to use what is a cryptographic key. Like Dracula doesn't believe in that, right? So like attracting users to have that journey is going to take some time. And once you start bringing cool interactive characters into your metaverse, that's like a really good draw awareness, right? So for example, like when Snoop Dogg partnered with like Sandbox, which also has a partnership with Animoca and the BNB ecosystem, like Snoop Dogg's character is in the metaverse and is able to interact and talk, but Snoop Dogg physically doesn't have to be there. But now if you have Snoop Dogg's character plus AI in it, and Snoop Dogg can be in many different metaverses, that draws in the crowd because that IP, that celebrity, that KOL sort of halo effect brings people in to like learn about what the interaction is. So you're absolutely right. I think like the lifetime value, it sounds weird, but like the lifetime value of a celebrity is not just going to be confined to our physical space anymore. You as a BNB host might exist on the metaverse like hundreds of years from now, right? Doing AMAs or doing conversations or talks. And so that's really the promise, where we're able to like create these digital versions of ourselves, and they'd be able to perform services and functions and drive engagement in some of these game economies.
Yes, that's cool. And I hope my great-grandsons will get the salary from the services I provide in the metaverse.
It's true. I know it sounds weird to say, but like because of NFTs, the provenance is on chain. And when you pass this provenance on chain down, I mean, it's still so early, but our thesis is that you'd be able to pass intelligence down as well, right? And so genetically, we pass our DNA down just through organic biological means. But once you start thinking a little bit about what we are able to pass on, whether it's through books, what we used to do with books or writing, we are now going to be able to pass down through the metaverse, right? And so this sort of like digital immortality is a new frontier. It's quite exciting and scary and terrifying at the same time. But where it starts to get really interesting is like when you start looking at the plethora of PFP projects that have been birthed and the creativity that people are creating from the ground up. Now they're then able to add AI to this and like start doing jobs and cool things. Like that's how like these Lego bricks start to form, and you start to create like some cool structures that kind of look a little bit funny and odd, but they're like a representation of human culture.
Right. All right, turning back, I have to keep going back to questions because it keeps flooding in. And I see quite a lot of people curious, right, about why you're doing an AMA with BNB Chain. Everyone knows you from the Ethereum world, of course. And I think the question is, so what plans do you have in BNB Chain and why are you here?
Yeah, I think we've always had a respect for the BNB ecosystem since the early days. And then I think towards the later end of last year, we concluded a strategic investment from the BNB Growth Fund. And since then, it's been really a positive journey for us, working with you, working with Gwen, working with the team to understand like, hey, how do we actually think through implementing some of these core technologies and bring them into the BNB ecosystem. So we're very excited to be partnering with the BNB ecosystem to be launching or bringing some of these collections to life. Today it's one bunny, but I think we'd be able to do many, many more collections and actually bring them to life. And so for us, the exciting part is like an engaged community, a thoughtful platform, really cool art that can be brought to life. And that's really what Alethea is about, where we want to work with partners who are able to do that. So excited to implement and launch cool things on BNB Chain.
That's cool to hear. And I also see some questions asking more about.
Also the gas.
Yes, go for it.
the gas saving on the gas process. A very positive experience, right? So I just wanted to make sure that pain point is like highlighted, because I genuinely think like as developers, like we we need to think thoughtfully about like, okay, so we have AI compute costs. On top of that, we have blockchain development costs. And on top of that, we have like, if you add like the uncertainty of like the variable cost that associated with gas. So there is like trade-offs that we have to make, but there's a lot of interesting unlocks that happen once we start thinking more efficiently about our infrastructure. So really excited about that too.
Cool, great to hear that. And I see some people asking questions about, just in general about the BNB Chain NFT landscape, and I can give some answers here as well.
Sure.
So today, BNB Chain has 1.5 million daily active users, and if you just count by daily active users, we are actually the largest blockchain out there. And many of this, I think easily half of the daily active users are kind of playing games or in the metaverse. So there is a huge user base out here, and of course, with these games and these activities, means that there is a lot of NFTs being traded, right? So not all are, of course, the PFPs that you may be familiar with on other chains, but there's a lot of utility NFTs over here, right? So we are constantly thinking about, how do we kind of liven up the NFT landscape? How do we add more utility, more fun, more activities that people can do with it? And I think that's why, we are thinking about how Alethea AI and, other kind of services, whether it's AI or stuff, can be built into this NFT landscape. And we're very happy to have you. All right, there's an interesting question on, let me see. So I saw it just now. All right, it's about revenants. So obviously a lot of these revenants characters, they have their own personalities in the past and their own thoughts and theses that they fight for. The question was, how accurate are your representations of these people from history? And I'm going to add one also at the end, a related question, which is, if you are a Pancake Squad bunny, right, or Bored Ape, for example, there isn't a legacy representation of these characters. So how do you then go about building these personalities as well?
Yeah. So I think like I'll deal with maybe the second question first, and then go to the Revenant's historical question. One thing that's really exciting for us for these new collections, because it's like tabula rasa, it's a blank slate. When you look at a Bored Ape, when you look at a bunny, when you look at these new collections, it's a space, it's a canvas for people to talk about their stories, right? So what we are doing is we're empowering users to create these personalities. So your Bored Ape, like if you go and speak with the Bored Ape today on Noah's Ark, that is contributed by one of our partners, a gentleman called G Money, who's like an active and prolific on Twitter, but also a really great collaborator in the space. If you talk to the Bored Ape, that Bored Ape has a sarcastic personality, has a funky voice, and like is perpetually bored, right? So you talk to him, if you're not entertaining him, he'll tell you some things, right? But that personality was actually crafted by, after we got input from G Money, like what exactly did he want that Bored Ape to represent, right? And so what we're seeing is like creator, like the AI portion of this is going to provide creators very strong creator tooling to bring their imagination to life. And so we see this PFP collections having that canvas, so people can bring these NFTs to life with the power of AI. So they can be as inaccurate or as creative or as wild or as funky as possible. There's just some limits, like where we are very thoughtful of or mindful of, like we don't want, let's say, a Bored Ape saying hate speech content, right? So we have certain filters and protections that exist in place.
For sure.
That's like sort of the approach we're taking with like existing new assets, new IP that's emerging, because that's the cool part. They can have any personality. It's like a new kid, right? Like, I mean, depends on the books you give the kid, right? So that's the exciting part. Regarding the revenants, what we did was we looked at, let's say, open source material that exists about Dracula, for example, or open source material that exists about Isaac Newton. There are, like, for example, there's a Revenant Isaac Newton. There's a lot of stuff that he has talked about publicly that's available, but he also had a lot of private diaries that not many people had access to that were later on released. We weren't able to capture the essence of the private diaries, right? Because that's very difficult material to acquire. But any public open source information that he has shared, we were able to put that into the data set to train his AI on. So I would say, like, historically, there are representations that we've tried to make them as accurate as possible, but there are like markers where the data was not clean. We were not able to put that into the data set that it was trained on. So there are some limitations to the historical accuracy of them. Sometimes we've also made the character somewhat sarcastic or funny just to create a new version of that character, right? So like it's not like it's not like a boring Dracula. Like this Dracula will tell you upfront that it likes human brains, right? And so things like that, So that's really the idea behind it.
Right. Some of the audience are interested in more of the recent developments or updates. What are some of the achievements, right, in the last 1 or 2 months?
Yeah, I think what's been exciting to see, we launched this thing called individual intelligence training. So that means like anybody, just at the high level, I can explain this very briefly just by sharing my screen, if that's okay. Can you see this diagram here with like a soul, a body, and a mind?
Not yet.
Not
it's
yet.
Coming up. Yep.
Okay, no problem. Just
see it now.
Oh, you see it now? Okay, great. So this diagram, right? It's what is an iNFT is a question that can be solved easily by just thinking of the human being, right? So the human being has a body, has a mind, right? Brain, mind, and a soul, right? Like just philosophically, right? So the soul for us is an NFT asset that you can pair with any body out there. So the body is your PFP collection. Can be a bunny, can be an ape, can be any specific collection on the BNB chain. The moment you pair these two together, you fuse them on chain, your pod has a certain intelligence level, right? And depending on the amount of ALI tokens that are locked in the pod, people are then able to perform certain services. The mind becomes activated. Once you have a soul plus body, your mind starts to get activated and you can start performing functions. So what's been really exciting in the past 2 months, past 2 to 3 months, it's been exciting to see our community. And I invite all of the listeners here to join our community on Discord and also learn a bit more about the future of AI. So we've made it very accessible for people to create personalities. So a lot of people have gone into the training modules to train their pods, to give them a personality, to give them a voice, to create their own characters. So we're coming up to a very exciting sort of crescendo in our training module where people who have purchased these pods, and there's like 10,000 of them out there, can bring their NFTs to life. And we will actually be showcasing this on an iNFT demo day where people essentially will bring their AI character to them, pitch it to a panel of judges and like explain like, hey, this is my AI character. This is what this AI character does. These are the services it can perform. Would you like to commission art from the AI character? Would you like to purchase some of its NFTs that it creates? Would you like to purchase some of the music it can generate? Essentially creating like a platform for, we call it create the creator, right? So like you're creating an AI NFT, an agent that can actually create new output. And that's what's going to be exciting. So the past 2 months, we've seen like the team and the community actually train their AIs. And at the end of March, we will actually have this crescendo moment where people would be able to actually see their NFTs come alive.
Cool, very cool. And someone was asking, so if I'm a user of BNB Chain, I want to get my NFT trained and so on. Do I need to have any kind of AI knowledge?
Yeah, no, actually, that's what we've tried to simplify the process on. The only primary knowledge that you require is like to be able to write good content. We have a bunch of classes on YouTube today, trained actually, created by the trainer behind Sophia the robot. So Sarah, who's a chatbot trainer and who's also been studying these things for many, many years, she's created this wonderful curriculum where you can go through these classes and you can learn how to program. Not learn how to program, like you don't have to be a developer to create a coherent AI personality. And that's like a big foundational shift. You just have to learn how to be able to type or write an essay, right? Or like write a description of like what your character is, right? Or my character is like Harry Potter, but just better looking like Alvin Khan, right? So he can say something like that, right? And then the character takes the form of Harry Potter, it understands the lore of the universe. And so like, as long as you can type coherent sentences, you're able to, the AI engine that we have is able to take those sentences and create meaningful output. And so like our community will essentially has been doing this. And that's the exciting part about it, because one of the things about AI is that it has been so intimidating. Just because people have to have that machine learning background, the data science background. But what we've done at Alethea is really simplify that process and abstract the complexity of creating compelling code without becoming a coder, right? So you just need to be you just need to be able to write decently, and you'd be able to do and create your personalities and actually bring them to life.
That's cool. And I think part of AI is also trying to simplify things, right? You're building a lot of logic into it, and of course, like natural learning into it, so that it can interact with people in a very simple way. So yes, I think that's great, just to have a very simplified process for people to do it. There was another question about, how many collections are trained right now, right? And how long does it take to train a collection?
Yeah. So every collection has its own unique visual language. So like, for example, like last year, it would take us months to train on a collection, just transparently. But the leaps that we've been able to make from a sort of AI standpoint, like now we can train our AI on a collection in a matter of days, right? So we're at a pace where our computer vision algorithms are able to learn what the collection looks like, the face, the structure, the lore, the story, and then it's able to take that and create it's almost like if you're in a library, we're like adding new books to the library section, right? So and then to add the new books, you need to add to the catalog of the library. You need to make sure people can discover this library, the books in the library shelf. And so for us, really the process of adding collections is going to scale. Presently, today, we support 10 collections. With the partnership with the BNB ecosystem and the BNB Chain ecosystem, we're looking to onboard more BNB native collections into the platform and actually work with BNB partners that you guys would recommend and add utility to this NFT. So that's going to happen. And I think by the end of this year, we would be able to support significantly larger than just 10 collections. Absolutely.
That's cool. I'm sure many BNB Chain collections are very excited to hear that. And I think one thing great about the BNB Chain in terms of NFTs is the variety is really huge, right? I mentioned games, and there's so many different kind of games. You have sharks, you have Mobox characters. There's so many. I'm just excited to see how each and every one of them, actually, in particular, what their personality would be, because you see them in games, right? But it's very different when you see it being trained. Cool. There was one other question. Let me see. This is about VR, right? So does Alethea AI support VR in terms of VR experience? And I'm not sure if you do, but even if you don't, like, how do you think about?
It's going to be a strategic push for us once we start seeing consumer applications take off in the VR space. Like there is, for example, the mass subsidy that Facebook or Meta has done with its Oculus headsets, right? Like they've really subsidized the cost of creating a headset. But we still see this primarily being restricted to North America, right? Like it hasn't had its mobile phone moment yet, where there is a full immersive experience. So VR is on the roadmap for us. We're just, because of its computational expense and resource, and then at the same time, because it's limited to a specific subset in the world, we haven't aggressively focused on it. But I think it is something that we are actively looking at, because the rate of change and the growth in the technology has also been exponential, right? So following Moore's law, compute has been getting cheaper for VR. And at the same time, some really unique applications are emerging in VR. The only consideration we have with the VR approach is we haven't really seen a Web3 native approach to VR worlds where you are fully immersed in that experience with a hardware device, right? Most of the hardware devices are pointing people to Web2 metaverses. Web2 metaverses have their value, but you can't have ownership dynamics in those universes yet, because they're principally built around the walled garden concept, right? The moment you start having NFTs, you're saying, oh, I can move from this metaverse to another metaverse, but I want the transactional layer or that chain, right? So that's essentially the paradigm shift that we're starting to see. We haven't really seen hardware or 3D companies tackle or onboard people into Web3 metaverses. So once we start seeing these triggers or markers, like let's say Sandbox starts integrating VR, or Decentraland, by VR, I mean like the headsets, and people get a full immersive experiences there. That's going to be very, very interesting for us. It's a good signal.
I believe that will happen. I mean, I'm not sure when, but I've seen like a lot of exciting, upcoming developments, projects that I'm talking to, and so on. They all look exciting. So, well, we'll see how the future goes. But this has been really, really cool to see. Now we are approaching the 45-minute mark. I'm just going to end it off with like one or two more, more lighthearted questions. There was one question about what is the most memorable conversation you've had with an intelligent NFT?
Yeah, I think one of the most, I think when we first launched the first iNFT, this was Alice, right? And so like the algorithms were somewhat like, the algorithms were also really new, like they were really like being tested out. And we had deployed Alice in 3 Sotheby's locations in Hong Kong, in London, and in New York. And so people could go up to Alice. So this is one character, one AI engine, one iNFT. People could go up to Alice in 3 different physical locations to chat with her. Now, when we trained Alice, like the original thesis was, let's make her as open to learning as possible. That means we placed her a character out there. We put some personality into her, like the Bitcoin white paper, the lore of Alice in Wonderland, so that she can talk. But what was really interesting was when people started to have interactions with her, and we forgot, this is a bit of a mistake, but we didn't really train her on like the fine arts, because transparently, I'm not an artist, right? Like I didn't go to fine art school. I worked at LinkedIn, boring job, economic graphs and recruiter emails, right? But like the difference here is like when people at Sotheby's started to talk to her about Rembrandts or Boteros or different artists, right, in the fine art world, she started to learn and pick up these conversations. And so there was one really profound conversation. It's still on Twitter, I think, like it has 10,000 plus views, where the artist Robert Ellis, the guy who provided the text for the creation of the Mind of Alice, the iNFT, he has a conversation with her about the future of art and AI. And her answers are quite profound. I'm not going to butcher them, but like I'd encourage everyone to check out that video. We can put that in the link later.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing. All right. So to end off, do you have anything you want to say to the BNB Chain community?
Yeah, no, we're really excited to be building with the BNB team. I think it's an awesome ecosystem and community. I think the creativity that is coming alive on the platform is going to be really exciting. We invite all of you to reach out to us to bring your collections to life on the BNB ecosystem. It's a ecosystem that we respect and support a lot, and I'm really grateful for this conversation facilitated by the BNB team, and always really nice to connect with you, Alvin, and talk about some of these cooler, edgier ideas that are actually being implemented live today, right? So these iNFTs, the intelligence might be a little bit primitive, but as we start building them out and they start offering services, like you'll start seeing, like it'd be really cool, like if tarot bunnies, if the bunnies are able to generate their own art, their own metaverses one day, right? So that's going to be really exciting, and people will be able to own these NFT assets and create this NFTs and bring them to life. So I'm excited to be here and excited to be part of the ecosystem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. No, thank you. It's great. It's great connecting with you again. It's great to have you on here, right? Just educating people more about iNFTs. I personally think it's really cool. And yeah, thank you to everyone who has dialed in. I hope you're excited by iNFTs, excited about Alethea, and also excited about what the future of NFTs, especially on BNB Chain, looks like. So thank you for everyone for dialing in. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.